I've said before that Silicon Valley is a danger to society, and they are. Literally, they are. So they have exposed, and Elon Musk knew about this, and so did Microsoft. This article goes back to, here's the article. Silicon Valley, the new slave plantation. OpenAI exposed Kenya workers to gory graphic content to train ChatGPT. Like, so obviously, I've said before, the people in Silicon Valley, all of these tech people, they have no conscience. And they are the people programming the AI for healthcare because the people heading up healthcare have no conscience. So that's not going to be good for anybody, because this is all just feed a machine. They put this was traumatizing to these people. This was, I'm not sure what date this was. Oh, 2023. Reports suggest founders and investors like Microsoft, Elon Musk, and others knew. They knew that this was being done. Under the glitz and the glamour of glorified emerging tech like the ChatGPT lies a grave of underpaid gig workers with charred hands and crushed souls, exposed to the terrifying toxic one can ever imagine. An explosive investigation by Billy Perigo of the Times has unraveled the murky underbelly of the emerging AI industry and the length they will go to explore and exploit, per the heart-wrenching accounts. Kenya gig workers were employed by OpenAI to train the AI chatbot ChatGPT to become less toxic by being exposed to some of the most graphic content found online, all for less than $2 an hour. So how much more does it, like, do people need to realize, no matter what they think that their AI or these revolution's going to bring, it's not going to bring anything good, because they created it and they have no conscience. Who would do this to, well, they would do this to people. According to the Times investigation, these employees were exposed to gore and graphic content of all kinds of abuse, sexual abuse, cruelty, torture, etc. The purpose was to shaft through the data and train the AI in not indulging. These Kenya analysts were expected to read and label more than 250 snippets of text that were filled with content describing sexual and racial violence. Many of these materials had mentions of murder, child abuse, animal abuse, self-harm, suicide, and every other evil that you would never even want to know about. The workers have been going through traumatic experiences after being exposed to these contents. One worker apparently suffered from recurring visions after reading at length a graphic description of a person having sex with a canine in the presence of a child. In the presence of a child. And founders and investors like Microsoft, Elon Musk, and others were aware of this. We are supposedly headed to a tech utopia, but at what cost? So true. Yeah. So, so they're enslaving people to get cheap labor. That's the reason why you have all these tech giants around Trump. Because, there's been articles where Peter Thiel is hoping that Elon Musk, or even he himself, can get Trump to warm up to, letting them have immigrants, okay? Look, the world is not just your dish to do whatever you want with, Silicon Valley, okay? You people should be forced to be enslaved. You really should. So that I think that's the only thing, because I don't think many of these people would change even then. But the only way you can get that type of person, and it may not even be possible to change, is you have to make them suffer the consequences that they put on others. You do. I know it seems like eye for an eye kind of thing, and we're not supposed to, but that's the only way maybe you can snap them out of it, because they don't have a conscience, and I'm sure they recognize it. That's why they're so dry, and they're very empty. But everything Silicon Valley has come up with has been nothing but destructive. Maids for sale, how Silicon Valley enables online slave markets. Google, Apple, and Facebook owned Instagram are enabling an illegal online slave market by providing and approving apps used for buying and selling of domestic workers in the Gulf. So here's the thing, Peter Thiel and you Silicon Valley dirtbags, is that, see, Trump, his number one goal was to eradicate trafficking and this modern day slavery stuff. So I'm sure that you guys knew that before. That's why you hated him so much his first term. Now you're scared to death of him, as you should be. Not because he's a scary person, but he seems to be a person that he's going to finish what he set out to do. So you should really stop thinking that you're going to play Donald Trump. I doubt that he's just decided, oh, I don't care that much about trafficking now. No, this was his number. He wanted to stop all this. And yet apparently you guys in Silicon Valley, many of you tech giants, you've been fully part of the traffickers to begin with. You've been, I mean, you're hiring them and yeah, you get them visas, but still you're putting them in indentured servitude. Slave markets found on Instagram and other apps, 2019. Silicon Valley's body shop secret. And what is it? Highly educated foreign workers treated like indentured servants. 2016. Everything wrong with Silicon Valley's culture in one gross presentation. This tech recruiter is convinced diversity makes Silicon Valley a landscape of entitled, fragile brats. Yet these are the same people, of course, that have been rolling out this DEI crap that is so destructive because they're destructive people. That's why healthcare is becoming destructive, because the destructive people and the no conscience people running healthcare are then with the other no conscience people there with in Silicon Valley bringing AI in, and so it's going to be a total disaster. It's just going to be it just gets worse. That's why I've said the healthcare system, I didn't used to feel like a slave in it. Now you literally are. It doesn't matter if you're a nurse. You're just because that's the people running our world, that's how they see others. So we can't have these people in charge anymore. They really should have to suffer the consequences that they put on others. That may be the only help for them, so that they know how it feels. I'm not saying that in a mean way. It's just that may be the only thing that maybe will restore them if they ever did have a conscience, but likely not. They were probably born that way. And then there's this, 2013, on healthcare tech and policy. Indentured servitude, a Silicon Valley innovation. You should be so proud, Silicon Valley. Economic forces determined outcomes with relatively little constraint from political considerations, such as the case, for example, in the original innovation of indentured servitude in the substitution of slaves for servants. And I'm not going to read all of this, just part of it. It said this was in 2013. The Sunday New York Times is reporting that technology firms are supporting, lobbying, advertising, and heavily influencing the immigration reform bill now before Congress. When you think about the large Silicon Valley corporations and the 0.0001% that run these firms, progressive images usually come to mind based on public statements, writings, and less frequently charitable acts of these magnates. Think again, under the guise of promoting a humane and yet pragmatic solution to the general immigration problem in the U.S., which has almost nothing to do with technology companies, the leaders and investors of high-tech corporations are attempting to strengthen and expand an institution that benefits their corporations and personal wealth, regardless of its effects on the American people and human rights in general. In between secure the border and pathway to citizenship lays a completely unrelated proposal to increase the allowance for guest work visas, mostly used by high-tech companies to import cheap labor from less developed countries. The innovation of indentured servitude was introduced around 1609 by the Virginia Company in an attempt to increase labor mobility from England to the colonies. With some exceptions, the indentured system was simply a credit mechanism by which willing and able workers could purchase the costly passage to the New World and its endless opportunities. However, They don't get that when they come to Silicon Valley.